In 1990, Bill's life takes a positive turn when he meets 20-year-old Stephanie Hall.
Bill and Stephanie met, and they went on a date.
Dad had asked him what he was going to do because he didn't have any money. And so Bill told him he was going to do a picnic lunch by a lake there.
They dated once or twice, and then she ended up getting pregnant.
Bill and Stephanie agree to marry. The couple ties the knot in January 1991. Baby Joshua arrives on Valentine's Day. A year later, Stephanie gives birth to a daughter, Guinevere.
Bill loved his kids. He took good care of them, and he always talked about the things he would do with the kids. You know, he'd bring them to the park, bring them different places, and do things with them. He was trying to provide for his kids. But he never pretended that the relationship was okay.
So as their family grew, Stephanie quit her job because she felt like she needed to be at home watching the children.
Bill was the sole breadwinner, even though he was happy to do it. You could always tell that he felt like there was a deficit because she would not work. She wanted to be pampered. She wanted to be spoiled. She wanted to be given things. And she wasn't willing to lift a finger for it.
We were aware that Stephanie was putting a lot of pressure on Bill to make a lot of money, and Bill tried.
You know, Stephanie was spending all the money. Bill was working. So in between jobs, when the job would finally end, if you hadn't developed some savings, you were going to have severe financial issues. And during one of those times, they had moved in with Mom.
A year earlier in 1993, Billy invited Bill, Stephanie, Josh, and Gwen to live with her in Louisiana.
Stephanie would tell anybody that would listen how much she didn't like staying with my mom. You got somebody cooking and cleaning and taking care of you, and you're griping about your living conditions. And it's not costing you anything to be here.
She was just very, very disrespectful toward Mom and toward her things. Mom would come home, the house would be a mess, and there was no reason for it because Stephanie wasn't working.
And so Mom finally told Bill he was going to have to leave. He'd have to bring Stephanie and the kids somewhere else.
Mom basically kicked Stephanie out of the house.
Two years pass before Bill, Stephanie, and the kids visit Billy again. The Hudnall clan gathers at her home in May 1995.
Hey, Bill, it's a little dark out here. Why don't you take your hat off so we have a little more light on the situation here?
Joe cracks a joke about Bill's receding hairline, but it's not a happy occasion. Billy has cancer.
Bill was worried because this was her second bout. She had had it 8 years earlier, and now she's got it again. We tried to make the best of it, even though there was some strained relationships between Bill and his mother, and Stephanie definitely.
Away from the camera, Bill and Stephanie's finances are stretched to breaking point.
Stephanie said that there was not enough money. That was absolutely not true. I believe that Bill made plenty of money on all those jobs. Those are high-paying jobs. She was just spending it faster than he could make it. I would always tell him, keep it in your pocket. Don't give it to her. You gotta give it to her. No, you don't. She's not buying food. She's just buying junk.
I was like, Bill, you work the same job that I work. You're making the same paycheck that I'm making, and I'm paying my bills.
On August 13, 1998, Stephanie gives birth to another daughter, Gracie.
I don't think the impact of another child was anywhere near as significant as Stephanie's spending habits and refusal to spend the money on the correct things, like a house, rent, power bill, you know. And so the debt collectors would be coming after her.
While Bill is away working, Stephanie decides to homeschool the kids without consulting her husband.
I think she didn't want to send the kids to school because she didn't want them going in and talking about home life, how she took care of her household, her kids, or lack of.
The house was in squalor. The children didn't have any new clothes.
I had been trying to get Bill to leave Stephanie for years and take his kids with him. But Bill would never leave Stephanie because he looked at it as her having the ability to get a good attorney to fight about it. And I told him, I said, Bill, it's not like that anymore. The state of Florida has laws in place that ensure that you're going to see your kids. Why in the world would you stick around somebody like that? It wasn't shortly after that that him and Stephanie did finally split up.
I heard the call come out that a male was found bloody inside his house by his wife and daughter. When I arrived on scene, Mr. Hudnall is laying in his bed. He's got his bed sheets tucked under his arms, pulled up to his armpits, and he is just head, chest, covered in blood. Then you have his axe laying next to him on the floor with bloodstains on the floor as well. The fact that somebody picked up this axe and used it at least 17 times against Mr. Hudnall is fairly significant. The first thing went through my mind that this was pure hate and violence. This was a crime of passion.
I was at home and I get a phone call from Guinevere. She said, Aunt Brenda, something has happened to Dad. I said, what do you mean something has happened to Dad? And she said, he's dead. Somebody broke in and killed him. When we arrived, I was able to speak to Stephanie and Guinevere when we got to the scene. We needed them to know that we were going to be there for them.
I had Detective Phillips and Detective Visconti start interviewing both Stephanie and Gwen on scene to get their stories.
Stephanie claims that she discovered Bill's body when she returned his truck earlier that morning. She says that she and Gwen had borrowed the truck the night before.
Stephanie advised that she and Gwen had gone to the home of Bill in the Mustang to pick up his vehicle to borrow it the following day to take Gwen to different massage schools in Ocala, as the Mustang that they had did not run very good and the air conditioner didn't work well. Stephanie stated that she left by 8:30, and she drove the Mustang home because the taillights didn't work in it, and she wanted to have it home before dark. And she said that Gwen then drove Bill's vehicle home, and she was home somewhere between 9 and 9:30 that evening.
Next, detectives interview Gwen Hudnall.
The story that Gwen gave was that they were there to pick up the vehicle to take a door off to go to the local dump. Gwen said she drove her Mustang home, and her mom drove her dad's car home.
Detective Phillips asked Gwen if she and her mom made it to the dump the following morning. Gwen replies, no.
We realized that they had conflicting stories. Their stories were inconsistent on the reason why they were borrowing the vehicle, who drove the vehicle home the night before, and that made us believe that we needed to look more into these two as possibly being involved in this. At this point in the investigation, there was no doubt in my mind that Stephanie had a lot more to do with this entire thing from start to finish. I did believe that it was pre-planned between the two of them that Gwen was going to kill Bill. There was not a doubt in my mind that Stephanie knew that she was driving Gwen to go kill Bill on that night. The two of them were arrested that evening on the homicide charges of Bill Hudnall.
Prosecutors pieced together what led Gwen Hudnall to murder her father.
Stephanie had gotten in Gwen's head that the two of them were going to get rid of Bill so they could get his Social Security check. Stephanie made Gwen feel like this was the only way for the two of them to make it financially. Gwen went there with the intent to kill her dad because it was going to make her mom and her lives easier without him being alive. She went and got the pickaxe, walked into the bedroom behind him where he was sleeping, and started hitting him with the axe.
The job done, Stephanie helps cover her daughter's tracks. Stephanie cuts a deal when she learns that her daughter will testify against her. Both women agree with prosecutors to plead guilty to second-degree murder.
They took a plea bargain down to second degree, and she gave her mother up. Because we, as a family, said it was more important to us that her mother get charged with this than it was for Guinevere to be put to death.
On Tuesday, September 25, 2012, a judge at Alachua County Criminal Justice Center in Gainesville sentences both Stephanie and Gwen to 40 years in prison.